Sometimes a story doesn't begin with a scream. Sometimes it begins with a heartbeat that just won't stop. Before the world fell silent, there was a boy who never got sick. Hospitals studied him. Doctors feared him. And when the coughing began, when whole cities vanished behind quarantine lines, he was still sitting in his room, healthy, waiting, listening to the hum in the walls. His name was Malik Carter. The papers later called him Patient Zero. But before he was a warning, he was just a child who wanted to know why everyone he loved kept dying. The following pages are taken from a notebook they found beside his bed. The handwriting changes halfway through. No one knows when he stopped being the boy and started being something else. So if you're ready to hear it, don't look away. Just listen to the hum. It's how his story always starts. They used to say I was lucky. That's what Grandma always told me. Malik, you got angel blood. You don't get sick like the rest of us. I like hearing that. It made me feel special. But sometimes special feels wrong. When I was little, I'd watch other kids cough and sniffle at school. Teachers told them to stay home, to drink soup, to rest. I never stayed home. I never had to. I didn't even know what a fever felt like. Grandma said God wrapped me in something invisible. I used to imagine it like a big glass bubble following me everywhere, keeping out germs, keeping me safe. But that bubble started to feel more like a cage. I remember that summer clear as day. The summer the coughing got louder. It started down the street at the old man's house. Every night, I'd hear him hacking through the open window. The sound carried through the trees, sharp and wet, like something tearing. Then Mrs. Ferguson stopped hanging clothes on the line. Then the buses stopped running. Then Mama stopped smiling. The world felt sick, but not me. Never me. I wrote in my notebook one night, trying to understand it. Everyone's coughing again. Everyone but me. The next morning, Mama couldn't get out of bed. Her skin was hot and gray at the same time. Her eyes looked like wet glass. She said, "Baby, don't come close. Go sit with Grandma." But I held her hand anyway. It didn't feel like her hand. It felt heavy, like it wanted to sink through the mattress. By sunset, she stopped talking. By sunrise, she stopped breathing. Grandma cried without sound. Her tears just rolled down and disappeared into her wrinkles. I sat beside her and waited for my own fever. It never came. They took Mama away in a black van with flashing lights. Men in white suits told us to stay inside. They sprayed something that smelled like burnt plastic all over our porch. That night, the air hummed. Not like crickets, not like thunder. It was lower, almost inside my head. Grandma said it was just power lines. But when I pressed my ear to the wall, it sounded like a voice whispering my name from deep inside the ground. The next day, Grandma started coughing too. At first, she said it was just dust, but I saw blood on her napkin. She tried to keep it from me, but I'm not stupid. I knew what was happening. She kept saying, "The Lord's testing us." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to think this was some big story with a happy ending. But then Jamal got sick, and Ariana. Every time someone got close to me, they got worse. And still, nothing happened to me. I started to hate my reflection. I'd stare at myself in the bathroom mirror, waiting to see something, anything, change. I looked normal, too normal. Then I found Grandma sitting by the window, holding her chest. She whispered, "If something ever happens to me, you call the hospital, okay? You tell them your name. Tell them you're special." I said, "But I don't want to be special anymore." She smiled weakly. "Sometimes, baby, special chooses you." That was the last thing she said before she stopped breathing. The house went quiet. The world outside was already quiet. No cars, no voices, just that humming again. I remember walking down the hallway, every floorboard creaking like it hurt to move. I stepped into Grandma's room and saw the cross still hanging above her bed. The air smelled like bleach and dust and something sweet that didn't belong. I touched her hand, and it felt cold, like the world had left her behind but forgot to take me too. When they came to pick her up, I didn't fight. I just stood there while the men in white suits looked at me through their foggy masks. One of them said, "This the boy?" The other nodded. "Yeah, the one who never got sick." They put me in a van. I didn't even pack a bag. Through the little window, I watched the neighborhood disappear. The trees, the cracked sidewalks, the yellow porch light that used to blink all night. Everything looked smaller the farther we went. I tried to cry, but nothing came out. I didn't feel empty. I didn't feel full. I felt waiting, like something was sitting just beneath my skin, patient and awake. That's when I realized something nobody else had said out loud. Maybe I wasn't protected. Maybe I was the reason everyone else was dying. That thought hasn't left me since. If you're hearing this story and you've ever felt lucky for being the one who survived when others didn't, don't smile too quickly. Sometimes luck is just the start of a curse. And if you're brave enough to keep listening, subscribe now before you forget. Because the next part of my story isn't about who died. It's about what stayed behind. Those who don't subscribe, when you hear the humming at night, you'll know why. They told me not to look out the window, but I did anyway. The sky looked bruised, all purple and gray, like it had caught the same fever everyone else did. We drove for hours. No other cars, no birds, not even the sound of wind. Just the hum of the van and the clink of metal tanks rolling on the floor. When the doors opened, bright white light hit my face. Men in suits that hissed when they breathed pulled me out. I asked where Grandma was. Nobody answered. They led me through a hallway that smelled like metal and medicine. The walls were smooth, too smooth, like the inside of a refrigerator. A woman with kind eyes behind her mask said, "My name's Nurse Valerie. You can call me Val." Her voice trembled when she said it, like she was pretending not to be afraid. They made me sit on a cold table while machines beeped. One man said, "Temperature, normal." Another said, "Pulse, normal." Then the tall one, the one everyone called Dr. Brooks, said, "Of course it's normal. It always is." They took blood. They took more and more. I asked why. Valerie said it was to help others get better. I told her I didn't think anyone was getting better anymore. She looked away. That night they gave me my own room, if you could call it that. Glass walls, no window to the outside, just a mirror that wasn't really a mirror. I could see my reflection, but sometimes I saw movement behind it. Shadows, shapes bending in the wrong direction. They said it was the lab staff. Cameras, maybe, but I knew mirrors shouldn't breathe. The bed was soft. The air smelled like plastic and lemons. I wrote on the first page of my new notebook, "This place hums louder than my house did." Days passed, but I couldn't tell how many. Lights blinked on and off like fake mornings and fake nights. They brought me food through a slot in the wall. Sometimes it was warm, sometimes not. I didn't care about eating much. I wasn't hungry. Dr. Brooks came in once, covered head to toe in white. His eyes were gray, tired. He said, "You're important, Malik. You might save everyone." I asked from what. He didn't answer. He just stared at the monitor beside me, where my heartbeat jumped like a small red fish. After he left, I pressed my hand against the glass. On the other side, a nurse stood watching. I could see her eyes. They were wide, scared, but she didn't move. I whispered, "I'm not dangerous." Her mask fogged as she whispered back, "That's what scares us." Sometimes at night, I heard things in the vents, soft scraping like someone dragging nails on metal. Other times I heard crying. Once I called for Valerie, but she didn't come. When she finally did, she looked pale. She said, "We lost another one in the West Wing." I asked if another one meant a sick person. She nodded. Then she looked at me and said quietly, "But you never change. Not once." She gave me crayons and a notebook, so I'd stop asking questions. I drew my neighborhood, Grandma, Mama, the big oak tree where we used to sit. Then I drew the hum. I didn't know what it looked like, so I made it black, round, and full of tiny white eyes. Valerie stared at the picture. "Why?" she asked. I said, "Because it watches me even when you're gone." She folded the drawing and slipped it into her pocket. She never brought it back. After that, they started taking me to a different room sometimes. No glass, just bright lights and cold tables. They'd strap my arm down and whisper to each other while they filled tube after tube with my blood. Dr. Brooks would mutter, "The antibodies are rewriting themselves." I didn't know what that meant. But when I closed my eyes, I felt something inside me shifting, like warm water moving under my skin. One evening, the generator failed for a few seconds. Everything went black. In that short silence, I heard breathing, heavy, close, not mine. When the lights came back on, my reflection in the glass smiled a second after I did. Valerie said it was my imagination, but the next morning she brought extra guards. I started writing again, try to keep my thoughts quiet on paper. They think I'm a cure. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm the reason they need one. Every day after that, Dr. Brooks came in looking worse, shaking hands, pale lips. One time, his mask slipped, and I saw sores at the corner of his mouth. He caught me staring. "You see too much," he said softly. Then, half to himself, "We should have ended the trials back then." Trials. He said it like I was part of something older. That night, the humming grew louder. I put my hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the walls anymore. It was coming from me. It pulsed with my heartbeat. It whispered in voices I didn't know. I tried to sleep. When I opened my eyes, the mirror across the room was fog from the inside. On the glass, written backward in small, shaking letters, was a sentence that wasn't mine. "We are still here." I stopped counting the days. The lights in my room blink on and off whenever they want, so mornings and nights don't mean much. Sometimes I think they keep them random on purpose, to make me forget what time feels like. Dr. Brooks says routine helps the mind, but he never gives me one. He just watches from behind the glass, writing on his clipboard. When he talks, his voice crackles through the speaker, thin and far away. He always asks the same question, "How do you feel today, Malik?" And I always answer, "Fine," even when I don't know what fine is anymore. The glass between us hums softly. I started pressing my ear to it, hoping to hear the outside world. All I hear is the electric buzz and, sometimes, the sound of water running through pipes somewhere deep below. It's like the whole building is breathing slow and heavy. Nurse Valerie still visits. She tries to smile every time, but her eyes look tired. She tells me stories about sunlight in grocery stores and people laughing on the street. Things that sound like dreams now. When she leaves, I smell the soap she uses, something lemony, and the smell fades too fast. The air smells empty after she's gone. One day, I asked if I could go outside. She said, "Not yet." Her voice cracked on the yet, like she didn't believe it herself. They draw my blood every morning. The needles don't scare me anymore. The silence does. Nobody talks while they do it. Machines beep, valves hiss, pins scratch on paper. Sometimes I close my eyes and imagine the tubes pulling out my thoughts instead of my blood. Dr. Mullins replaced Tyler Green after what happened. They told me Tyler got transferred, but I heard the truth in Valerie's whisper when she thought I was asleep. She said, "It happened fast. Same symptoms as the others." Then she started crying. I wanted to tell her it wasn't my fault, but I wasn't sure that was true. Last night, I woke up to red lights flashing in the ceiling. An alarm screamed, but no one came. I sat in bed and watched the cameras swivel toward me, tiny red dots blinking. I whispered, "What do you want?" The red lights blinked twice, like eyes closing. Then everything went dark. When the power came back, there were fingerprints on the inside of the glass, small, like a child's, but not shaped like mine. After that, I began to hear voices through the speakers. Not words at first, just low murmurs, like someone trying to remember how to speak. I told Valerie, but she said no one else was using the intercom. She looked scared again. Now she double-checks the locks before she leaves my room. Dr. Brooks looks worse every day. His beard's gone white. His hands shake when he holds a clipboard. He talks less now, more to himself than to me. Yesterday, While he was staring at the monitor, he whispered, the pattern spreading inward. When I asked what pattern, he said, go back to sleep. It was 2 in the afternoon. The hum inside the walls has changed. It isn't steady anymore. It pulses with my heartbeat. When I press my palm to the glass, it beats back like something on the other side is trying to match me. Sometimes I wonder if the glass is keeping me in or keeping it out. Valerie brought me new crayons today. She said I should draw again, that it helps process feelings. I drew her first, then Dr. Brooks, then me. Then I drew the room the way it looks when the lights go off. Black walls, 1 red dot, and a long shadow standing beside my bed. I didn't remember drawing the shadow. My hand just moved. When she saw it, Valerie whispered, you shouldn't see things like that. But I do, even with my eyes closed. Later, while she was cleaning the tray, she dropped her gloves. She picked them up fast, but one fingertip brushed my arm. She froze. I saw her eyes widen through the mask. Then she backed away, slowly, like I was fire. She said she'd come back tomorrow. She didn't. I don't sleep much anymore. The hum gets louder when I try. Sometimes it sounds like breathing. Sometimes it sounds like my name being stretched too long. I am back. It hums louder. The last time Dr. Brooks spoke to me, he said, you're still stable, Malik. That's good. Then, almost whispering, but I don't think stability means safe. He smiled, at least his mouth did. His eyes looked like he'd already given up. When he left, I looked at the glass. My reflection smiled back before I did. It stayed smiling even after my face went blank. I think the glass is learning me. I think it knows what I'm going to do before I do it. They started whispering outside my door. I could hear them through the vents, Dr. Brooks, Dr. Mullins, and Valerie. When they whispered, the hum in the walls dropped low, as if it wanted to listen too. I pressed my ear to the glass. Dr. Mullins said, if he's the carrier, we have to shut the program down. Brooks answered, he's not the carrier. He's the container. Then the door hissed shut, and the hallway went quiet again. I didn't know what container meant, but it sounded heavier than boy. That night the intercom clicked on by itself. Static at first, then a faint child's voice. It said my name once, slow and careful. Then another voice said it again, higher this time like a girl. Then 2 more voices joined in, whispering in a pattern that sounded almost like breathing. I covered my ears, but the voices were inside, not outside. When I opened my notebook, my hand moved on its own and wrote, we remember you. In the morning, Valerie came back, eyes red, hands shaking. She said she had to take more samples for confirmation. While she set up the tray, a folder slid from her clipboard and hit the floor. Paper spilled out, names, dates, numbers. I saw one sheet before she snatched it up. At the top it said, Project Nightshade. Below that, Subject 04, Malik Jerome Carter. I asked what it was. She told me it was just medical paperwork, but her voice broke, and she wouldn't look at me when she said it. After she left, the hum returned, louder than ever. It felt like the room was filling with invisible water, pressing against my skin. I could feel something underneath the noise, like words trying to form. When I mouthed the syllables, they made sense for a second. Detroit, Chicago, Birmingham, Oakland. I didn't know those places, but they made my stomach twist. Later, Dr. Mullins came in alone. No mask this time, just tired eyes and trembling hands. She asked if I'd had any dreams. I told her about the voices and the cities. She went pale. Then she whispered. They were children, too. I asked what she meant, but she turned off her recorder and said, forget it. I can't forget. Every time I close my eyes, I see flashes of rooms that aren't mine. A girl with tubes in her arms. A boy screaming inside a metal box. Another child lying still while lights blink red over his face. They look at me like they know me. The next day, Valerie didn't come to take blood. Dr. Brooks came instead. He looked sick now, skin thin, mouth dry. He said, we've been trying to save the world, Malik. I'm not sure it wants to be saved. He left a small metal badge on the table with his name on it. When I picked it up, it burned cold. The hum stopped for the first time in months. In the silence, I heard 4 heartbeats, mine, and 3 that weren't. That night, I woke to alarms again. Through the glass, I saw Valerie running, papers in her arms. One sheet slapped against the window of my room as she passed. I pressed my palm against it. It was a birth certificate. My name was at the bottom. 3 other names were above it, crossed out. I tore a page from my notebook and wrote, "If I'm the last one, where did the others go?" The intercom answered with breathing. Then the same 4 voices said together, "Home." I couldn't breathe. The walls felt closer, tighter, like lungs around me. I shouted for Valerie, for anyone. The hallway lights flickered, and for a second I saw shapes behind the glass. Small, shadow-thin children standing in the red light. They tilted their heads the way I do. Then they were gone. Dr. Mullins burst in, dragging a folder to the glass. "Look," she said, "do you remember any of these names?" I shook my head. She flipped the folder open. Photographs. For babies, each with the same barcode tattooed near the heel. Mine was the last photo. The others had black excess drawn over their faces. Mullins whispered, "They said you were patient 0. You're not. You're 4. The last one that worked." Then she looked over her shoulder and said, "They'll erase this. They'll erase us." Before she left, she pressed her hand to the glass. Her fingers left faint heat marks that spread like frost. She said, "If you hear them again, don't answer." I said, "I already did." When the lights dimmed later, the air shimmered faintly, like heat waves. In that shimmer, the outlines of 3 children flickered. One laughing, one crying, one staring straight at me. They whispered together, soft as wind. "We were made together. Now we're coming back." The glass trembled under my palm. For the first time, it felt thin. The noise stopped last night. Not the little hum in the walls, that one never quits, but the bigger one, the one that sounded like air breathing through the building. It stopped so sudden my ears rang. I didn't notice how much I'd gotten used to it until it was gone. For a while I thought maybe I'd gone deaf. Then I heard the slow drip of water somewhere far away. One drop, pause another. The kind of sound that makes time feel stretched thin. The lights flickered once, twice, and then they stayed dark. I waited for the backup glow that always came on, but it didn't. The room felt smaller right away, like the darkness was leaning in to see me better. I whispered, "Valerie." No answer. Something clicked behind the glass, a tiny spark, and then a red light blinked on above the door. Emergency power. It made everything look red and wet, like the world was under somebody's skin. I sat on the floor and tried to count my breathing. That's when I heard footsteps running down the hall. Not calm steps, panicked ones. 2 voices. Dr. Mullins first. The generator's down to 1 line. Then Valerie. It shouldn't have failed this soon. Their words bounced off the walls until they sounded like 100 people arguing. I pressed my ear to the glass. I wanted to call out, but something inside me said not to. Something heavy, like a warning, sat in my chest. When they finally reached my window, I saw their faces in the red light. Sweat. Fear. Valerie's hand shook as she checked the panel beside my door. Dr. Mullins whispered, "We can't open it. If the pressure seal breaks." Valerie cut her off. "He'll suffocate if we don't." They looked at me then, both of them. I tried to smile, but their eyes made me feel like a ghost already. The hum in the walls came back, softer now, but slower. It beat with my pulse. Every time my heart thudded, the red lights dimmed and flared again. Dr. Mullins stared at the monitor. His vitals are sinking with the power feed. Valerie whispered, "That's not possible." I said, "I can't hear you." They froze. I didn't mean to scare them. I just wanted them to talk to me like before. But when I spoke, my voice echoed in the speakers overhead, like it came from every corner of the room. Valerie stepped closer to the glass. "Malik, honey, are you feeling okay?" I nodded. "I feel big." That was the only word I could find, like something was stretching behind my ribs, trying to stand up inside me. Then the lights died completely. I couldn't see anything, not even my own hands. For a few seconds, the dark hummed louder than sound. I could feel it pressing against my skin, warm and buzzing. It whispered through my bones, "Wake up." I think I did. Not all the way, just a little. Enough to feel every heartbeat in the building, not just mine. When the lights came back, Dr. Mullins was on the floor. Valerie knelt beside her, breathing fast. Blood trailed from Mullins's nose like a thin red thread. She looked up at me and said, "It's drawing current. From us." Valerie screamed, "Turn it off." But there was nothing left to turn. I pressed my hand against the glass. The red light shimmered through my fingers. For the first time, the glass felt warm. It pulsed once like something on the other side was alive. The emergency alarm blared again. Valerie yelled into her radio for help, but all she got was static. She hit the panel. Sparks flew. Then she looked back at me, whispering my name over and over like a prayer she didn't believe in anymore. I want to tell her it wasn't me, but part of me knew it was. The hum was following my heartbeat. Every time it rose in my chest, the lights outside flickered. Every time it slowed, the hallway went dark again. I wrote in my notebook, even though my hands shook. If the lights are alive, maybe they breathe through me. Dr. Mullins crawled to the wall and tried to pull the main breaker. The red light blinked 3 times, fast, like it was answering her. Then the breaker handle snapped off in her hand. She stared at it for a long moment and said, "It's adapting." I didn't know what that meant, but I felt the air change. It grew thick like water just before it boils. I could taste metal. I could taste fear. Valerie helped Mullins to her feet. They backed away from my window. Through the glass I saw Valerie mouth, "I'm sorry." Then they ran. The hum followed them down the corridor, fading into the distance until I was alone again. Only the red light stayed, blinking slow like a heartbeat that wasn't mine anymore. I sat on the floor and waited for the sound to stop, but it didn't. It moved inside my head instead. It whispered, "They're leaving. We're staying." I don't know who he is, but when I looked at my reflection, my mouth wasn't moving, and it was still whispering. When the alarm stopped, the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like something waiting for permission to move. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed. The red light above the door flickered once, then stayed steady. The hum slowed until it matched my breathing. Then I heard the click. One soft click, then another. The sound of locks uncoiling. The air hissed through the vents, warm and heavy. Dust lifted from the corners and spun like smoke. The door's edge glowed faintly, and a line of white steam rolled along the floor. I whispered, "Don't," but the door listened to the hum, not to me. It opened by itself. Slow, careful, polite. The hallway beyond it was red and still. The emergency lights blinked in rhythm, long pauses between flashes. For the first time in years, I saw a space that wasn't made for me, and it looked sick. Pipes leaked from the ceiling. Plastic curtains hung torn, swaying without wind. Every surface gleamed with thin water, and every drip echoed like a heartbeat that had forgotten how to stop. I waited for Valerie to come running, to shout that it was a malfunction. Nobody came. The hum whispered, "Go." I stepped into the hallway barefoot. The floor was warm. Not warm like summer, but warm like skin. I could smell metal, bleach, and something sweet like fruit gone bad. I followed the smell. It led me past the observation window where Dr. Brooks used to stand. The chair was empty, the clipboard still on the desk, pages fluttering with each flicker of the light. I picked one up. There was a drawing on the back, my heartbeat chart, red lines climbing and falling. Except someone had traced over it with a darker pen, turning the lines into shapes that looked like veins. Next to it, in small letters, "Convergence accelerating." I didn't know what that meant, but reading it made the hum inside me quicken. A sound came from farther down the hall, a metal tray clattering to the floor, then quiet. I followed it. The silence between each footstep felt thick enough to break. When I turned the corner, I saw Valerie. She was kneeling by a body. Dr. Mullins. Her face was gray, eyes open, lips moving but no sound coming out. Valerie looked up when she saw me and pressed a shaking finger to her mouth. "Stay back," she whispered. Her voice cracked in the middle like the word hurt. I said, "It's okay." The door opened for me. She shook her head. "No, Malik." It opened for itself. Behind her, the lights flickered again, slower now, until the hallway turned dark except for the red pulse that came from somewhere behind me. The hum filled the space between us. Valerie's eyes widened. She whispered, "Do you hear it too?" I nodded. "It sounds like it's breathing through us." Then the red light behind me stretched, forming a long shape on the floor. A shadow. Mine, but taller. It'd been at the wrong places. Valerie pulled Mullins's body closer, as if that would help. She whispered, "It's not you, is it?" I said, "I don't know anymore." The air grew hot. Drops of condensation slid down the walls like sweat. Something in the pipes above us thumped twice, heavy and wet. Then the hum rose so loud that it turned into a single sharp tone. The lights burst back on. For a second, everything looked white, too bright to breathe in. When my vision cleared, the shadow was gone. So was Valerie. Only her radio lay on the floor, still hissing static. Through it came her voice, faint and broken. "Don't go farther, Malik. Whatever's in you, it's waking up." Then nothing. I picked up the radio. Static filled the air like dry wind. When I pressed the button, the static bent into words that weren't Valerie's. For voices, layered together, said, "We're almost home." The hall ahead stretched into darkness. The hum pulled me forward with every heartbeat. My hand shook, but the rest of me felt calm, like something else was steering. I passed the lab doors, each window fogged from the inside, handprints smeared across the glass. Some big, some small. One of them moved when I walked by. I wrote a line in my notebook, even though the paper was damp and tearing. The lights went out to let something see. At the end of the corridor, a metal door stood half open, cold air curling through the gap. Above it, in fading paint, I could still read the words "exit," "surface access." The hum beat once more, strong enough to shake the floor, and then it stopped. Everything fell silent again, even my heartbeat. Then I heard a voice that wasn't in my head this time. A child's voice, right beside my ear. "Come on, Four. It's time." When the humming stopped, I thought I'd gone deaf again. But it was just the quiet, the kind that is weight. The kind that presses against your skin and waits to see what you'll do. I sat in the middle of the corridor. Red lights were gone. Only the emergency signs glowed faint green, barely bright enough to see the dust hanging in the air. Valerie's radio was still in my hand, whispering nothing. I called her name once. The echo came back softer, like a child repeating me from far away. Maybe it was one of them. Maybe it was me. The floor was slick. Every step made a soft peel sound, like lifting tape. A smell of burnt plastic and medicine filled the air. I passed the rooms where the glass walls used to shine. Now they were cracked, the edges melted smooth. Behind them, machines lay open, their wires coiled like veins. Dr. Brooks's office door hung off its hinges. His papers covered the floor, diagrams, blood charts, a photo of 4 infants in hospital blankets. Someone had circled one of the faces in red. I didn't have to guess which one. The name below it was mine. I found Valerie's badge on the desk, smeared with something dark. Next to it was a note written in uneven lines. "If he survives, it means the world won't." I folded it and put it in my pocket. I don't know why. Maybe to prove that someone once cared enough to warn me. Down the hall, one of the doors was sealed shut. The glass window in the middle was covered from the inside by a handprint, too small to be Valerie's, too perfect to be smudged by panic. It looked fresh. I touched it, and the glass pulsed once, faintly warm. Then it cooled again. The hum came back, but softer this time, deeper, almost gentle. It didn't sound angry anymore. It sounded full. Somewhere above me, I heard a mechanical click, then the distant whine of gears. The ceiling vents opened, pushing down cold air. Dust spiraled upward like it was breathing out instead of in. The building wasn't dead. It was exhaling. I walked until the corridor turned into a stairwell. The steps were metal, wet, and streaked with gray fingerprints. At the top, a heavy steel door waited. The word surface was carved across it in dull letters. The handle was bent but loose. I took one breath and pushed. Cold air rolled over me, sharp and clean. It smelled like rain on old dirt. For a second, my eyes burned from the brightness. The world outside was pale gray, fog curling over cracked asphalt, and rusted cars half sunk in weeds. No wind, no voices, no sound except for the small pop of cooling metal from the door behind me. I stepped out. The ground felt soft, not from grass. There wasn't any, but from ash. When I lifted my foot, it left a print that glowed faintly before fading. The light came from me. It shimmered through the skin of my hands, just under the surface, where veins used to be blue. I looked up. The clouds moved slow, heavy, like they were thick with something other than rain. Pieces of torn paper floated by, maybe ash, maybe snow. One landed on my arm, a page from a report. The words were half burned, but I could still read. Containment compromised. Subject expanding radius of. The rest was gone. I started walking toward the broken fence. Each step made the ground hum faintly, echoing the same rhythm I'd heard all my life. It was quieter now, like it was breathing with me instead of through me. Far away, I saw movement, figures in yellow suits, walking slow, holding long rods that sparked at the tips. When they saw me, they stopped. One raised a hand to his helmet, speaking into a radio. Another lifted a camera. I waved. They didn't wave back. They aimed the rods at me. A burst of white light hit the ground a few feet ahead, scattering dust. The hum inside me rose, fast and angry, before I could stop it. The machines they held flickered, then died. Their lights blinked out one by one. The air between us shimmered like heat. I heard one of them shout through the mask, "Don't move." But his voice sounded distant, muffled by the same air that burned my lungs. I wasn't trying to move. I was trying to keep still. But something inside me, something huge, leaned toward them, like gravity had changed direction. One of them dropped his rod and stumbled back. Another fell to his knees. The third one didn't move at all. The hum stopped. Then all three were gone. Not gone like vanished. Gone like emptied. Their suits still stood for a moment, then slumped over, hollow. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel proud either. I just felt quiet again. I looked down at my hands. They were trembling, bright beneath the skin, the light flickering with each heartbeat. When I turned them over, I saw the reflection of the sky shining inside the veins. It looked like it was trying to get out. I wrote the last line of today's entry on the corner of the burned page I still held. The world outside isn't sick. It's waiting. The air outside feels different now. Thicker, slower. Every breath tastes like dust and rain mixed together. I walked until the buildings behind me disappeared into fog. When I looked back, the hospital sat half buried in the ground, windows broken, wires hanging like vines. The wind pushed through the empty frames and made a low sound, almost a word, maybe my name. The road ahead was cracked open by roots and time. Grass tried to grow in the seams, but turned gray halfway up the stems. I kept walking. No people, no cars, only the quiet kind of world that forgets it used to be alive. A billboard leaned across the ditch. The paint peeled off except for one word: safe. Someone had drawn a question mark after it. I touched the metal, and it flaked away under my fingers. I thought about Valerie, how she whispered stay back, how she called me honey, even when she was scared of me. If she's still out there, maybe she's watching the same sky. Maybe she's writing about me the way I'm writing about her. The notebook pages are almost gone now. The paper curls at the edges from the damp air. When I write, the ink spreads out like veins. I keep thinking it's trying to draw something by itself. A sound followed me for a while. Soft footsteps that stopped when I stopped. I turned around every time, but nothing was there. Only long shadows stretching across the road. They moved even when the clouds didn't. After a while, I started talking out loud, just to hear another voice. I told the air about Grandma's cornbread, about the smell of her kitchen. For a second, I almost smelled it again. Then the scent changed, sweet, rotten, the same smell from the hallways below. The wind carried it away. Far ahead, I saw a house standing by itself, half collapsed, doors swinging in the breeze. I went inside to rest. The floor creaked under my weight. Dust floated in beams of gray light. A child's drawing was still taped to the wall, 4 stick figures holding hands. Someone had scribbled over the faces. One of them looked like mine. I sat down on the steps and opened the last page of the notebook. The hum came back, faint but steady, like a heart finding its rhythm again. Not inside the building, inside me. I wrote, "I don't think I'm the last one. I think I'm the first to something else." Then I closed the book. I wanted to feel scared, but all I felt was quiet. Maybe that's what happens when fear runs out. You just listen. Night came slow. The sky turned dark purple, and the clouds sank until they touched the rooftops. From somewhere in the fields, lights began to blink, small, yellow, uneven. At first I thought they were fireflies. Then they started moving toward me, one by one, until I could hear faint breathing between them. Children's breathing. The doorframe filled with a pale glow. For shapes stood there, thin and still. They didn't step inside. They just watched. The tallest one tilted its head the way I do. I whispered, "Are you them?" The smallest shape nodded. I couldn't tell if it was smiling or if its face was just made of light. I felt the hum pass between us, slow and careful. Not angry, not kind either, just alive. Then the light faded. When I looked again, the doorway was empty and the wind had stopped. The silence left behind felt heavy but gentle, like a blanket laid over the world. I walked outside. The fog had thinned, and I could see the forest ahead. Dark trunks, silver leaves, a narrow path twisting between them. I followed it. For a moment, I thought I heard voices again, calling softly from somewhere deeper in the trees. Not words, just the sound people make when they dream. I wanted to answer, but I kept walking. The path turned once more and opened into a field of tall weeds. The moon hung low and red above me. Everything looked washed clean, even the ruins far behind. I didn't feel cold. I didn't feel tired. I just kept walking until the world around me looked new. I stopped at the edge of the forest and looked back one last time. The fog was rising again, curling around the broken hospital in slow circles. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw movement in one of the upper windows, something small, watching. Maybe my reflection. Maybe another boy. I don't know how to end this. Maybe there isn't an end. Maybe it keeps going until someone finds this notebook and starts reading out loud. If they do, maybe they'll hear the hum too. I'll leave it here on the fence post where the wind can reach it. If you're reading this, listen closely. If you hear the low sound in the walls tonight, don't follow it. It already knows where you live. The last page of Malik's diary ends where the forest begins. No dates, no goodbye, just a blank line, as if he meant to keep writing somewhere else. Days later, search teams found the notebook wedged between 2 stones near the tree line. The ink was still wet. No footprints led away from it. Only faint circles burned into the soil, like something had been standing there too long. Since then, people living near the old facility say the air hums before a storm. Sometimes lights flicker in their houses, and a child's voice asks from the dark, "Do you feel sick yet?" No one has ever answered. No one wants to know what happens if you do. And somewhere, beyond that humming sky, another diary waits to be opened. Another story that was never supposed to be told.